Liara had heard the stories all her life. Every Illyrian child was taught about the humans, the strange creatures from a small, blue planet on the edge of the Milky Way. They were said to be warriors unlike any other, brave, clever, and sometimes reckless. But most of the stories were exaggerated, like fairy tales meant to inspire awe. Liara had always laughed at them. Humans were small, weak, and primitive compared to her people. Their bodies were fragile, their technology crude by Illyrian standards, and their society simple. How could they ever be considered warriors? She had been chosen to observe them, a scout sent to a frontier world where humans and Illyrians worked together to maintain peace in a sector filled with danger. Liara approached her assignment with skepticism and curiosity. She was confident in her own abilities and those of her people. No human could surprise her. No human could show her anything new. The shuttle carrying her descended through the atmosphere of the frontier world, its engines cutting through clouds tinged with green and gold. Liara pressed her hand to the viewport, watching the rugged terrain stretch below. Mountains rose like jagged teeth, rivers carved silver paths through the valleys, and forests shimmered with alien life. From above, the planet looked beautiful, but it was also dangerous. Creatures from deep in the wilds often attacked settlements, and rogue mercenaries sometimes raided the outposts. Humans had been stationed here for years, working alongside Illyrian peacekeepers to maintain order. When she landed at the base, Liara stepped out of the shuttle and felt the strange warmth of the world's atmosphere. Humans bustled about, moving quickly and speaking in harsh, clipped tones. She studied them with her usual detached curiosity. They were smaller than her, with soft skin and bright eyes that flicked from one thing to another with rapid intelligence. They carried weapons that looked primitive, but their movements were careful and precise. Even as she watched, she felt the faintest stir of unease. Perhaps these humans were not as weak as she thought. Her first encounter was brief. A human man approached her with a quick smile and a hand extended in greeting. "I'm Captain James Arlen," he said. "Welcome to the frontier." She shook his hand politely, but her mind already dismissed him as competent, but hardly extraordinary. Over the next few days, Liara observed the humans closely. She noted their routines, their methods, and their strange behaviors. They trained hard, yes, but so did many species. They joked among themselves in ways she found frivolous. They seemed unafraid to take risks that she considered reckless, and yet they survived. More than that, they adapted. They solved problems in ways Illyrians would never consider, combining instinct and imagination in ways that often seemed chaotic but effective. One evening, a call came over the base's communication network. A nearby outpost had reported trouble. A mercenary band had attacked, and civilians were in danger. Liara accompanied a mixed human-Illyrian response team to investigate. She expected to arrive, assess the humans' performance, and find them clumsy or indecisive. She was prepared to make a report dismissing their skills. The terrain was harsh, winding through narrow canyons and rocky cliffs. As the team approached the outpost, a sudden explosion rocked the ground, throwing dust and debris into the air. Liara barely had time to react before a group of mercenaries appeared, firing weapons with deadly precision. Panic would have been natural, but the humans moved differently. They spread out, covering each other, using the terrain to their advantage. James took charge immediately. He shouted orders, moving with a mix of confidence and calm that surprised her. Liara followed, staying close but keeping her own thoughts separate. She wanted to see how he would fail, but he didn't. He anticipated attacks, used clever diversions, and protected those around him. His actions were not based on raw power, but on understanding, instinct, and timing. Liara felt a strange mix of irritation and admiration. She had never seen a being combine these qualities so seamlessly. When the Illyrians hesitated, calculating probabilities and analyzing threats in a slow, deliberate way, James acted. He trusted his instincts, his knowledge, and the abilities of his team. One by one, the mercenaries were driven back, disoriented by strategies they could not predict. By the time the skirmish ended, the outpost was secure. Civilians emerged from hiding, looking relieved and grateful. Liara watched James help them to safety, his movements careful, precise, and surprisingly gentle for someone who had just fought fiercely. She felt a spark of something unfamiliar, respect. But she pushed it down, telling herself that one encounter did not prove the legends true. That night she lay in her quarters, staring at the ceiling. The human's methods replayed in her mind, especially James. He had been clever, fearless, and resourceful. Yet he had also been unpredictable, willing to take risks that seemed reckless but had worked perfectly. She could not deny that he had saved lives, Illyrians and humans alike. Liara recalled the stories she had laughed at as a child, tales of human warriors turning impossible battles into victories, of individuals standing against overwhelming odds, and of courage that inspired others to fight alongside them. She had always assumed these were myths, exaggerations to entertain young minds. But now, watching James and his team, she realized there might be truth behind them. The next morning, Liara observed the humans again, noting how they worked together. They trained, yes, but they also shared stories, laughed, and even argued. Their bonds were strong, forged through trust and experience. She saw how these bonds allowed them to anticipate each other's actions, cover weaknesses, and exploit opportunities. It was teamwork unlike anything she had experienced among Illyrians, whose reliance on logic and rules sometimes limited creativity. A new report came in. The mercenaries had retreated to a canyon system to the north. The humans prepared to pursue them, while the Illyrians calculated the odds of success and potential losses. Liara felt the familiar urge to criticize, to see their methods fail. But as she watched James rally his team, explain the plan with clarity and humor, and anticipate every possible outcome, she felt something shift within her. Perhaps humans were not as weak as she thought. Perhaps the myth she had dismissed contained more truth than she had realized. She still did not fully understand it, but she felt a stirring of curiosity, of respect, and of anticipation. As the mixed team moved out, Liara fell into formation beside James. He glanced at her briefly, his expression neutral, but she could sense the same trust he extended to his team. She adjusted her stance, ready to follow his lead, even as her mind whirred with questions. How could a species so small and fragile display such power, not in strength alone, but in courage, strategy, and spirit? The journey through the canyon system was treacherous. Loose rocks, narrow ledges, and sudden drops tested everyone's skill. Yet the humans navigated it with a combination of instinct and careful planning. Illyrians hesitated, calculating risks in ways that slowed them down, but the humans acted decisively, often leading the Illyrians safely through dangerous terrain. By the time they set up camp for the night, Liara's skepticism had begun to waver. She still questioned whether humans were truly exceptional, but she could not deny the evidence before her eyes. Their resilience, creativity, and ability to inspire those around them were unlike anything she had ever witnessed. Sitting by the fire that evening, Liara watched the humans laugh and share stories. James sat nearby, tending to equipment and checking supplies, his demeanor calm yet alert. She felt a strange mix of emotions, fascination, respect, and the first hint of humility. The myths of human warriors were not just stories, they were warnings, lessons, and perhaps even glimpses of truth. Liara realized that her journey had only begun. Observing humans was one thing, understanding them, learning from them, and facing danger alongside them was another. She did not yet know how far this experience would change her, but she sensed that it would. The frontier world was dangerous, and the humans had shown that courage and intelligence often mattered more than technology or size. As she closed her eyes that night, listening to the distant sounds of the canyon and the quiet hum of human activity, Liara allowed herself a small, private thought. Maybe, just maybe, humans were more than myths. Maybe they were exactly what the galaxy needed to remember that strength came in many forms, and that sometimes the smallest beings could cast the largest shadows. The sun rose over the jagged peaks of the frontier world, casting long shadows across the canyon floor. Liara woke to the sound of human voices, crisp and full of energy, as if the day itself had no dangers to offer. She stretched and shook off the fatigue from the previous day's journey, her thoughts still lingering on Captain James Arlen and the strange mix of calm confidence and quick instinct he seemed to carry naturally. She had expected humans to be clumsy, to need constant guidance from Illyrians, but what she had seen yesterday had unsettled her assumptions. By the time the team gathered, James was already reviewing the mission plan. He spoke quietly to his team, pointing to the canyon maps, sketching lines in the dust with his fingers, and explaining every potential risk and opportunity. Liara observed closely. His strategy was simple in appearance, but every choice had a reason, every action accounted for multiple possible outcomes. She could see the subtle ways he anticipated not only the terrain, but the enemy's possible reactions. Liara was assigned to accompany James' unit into the northern canyon, where the mercenaries had been spotted. She expected a routine patrol, perhaps some minor skirmishes, and the usual demonstration of human weakness. But as they moved out, she noticed a quality she had not fully recognized before. Humans had a rhythm, a flow, and an instinctive sense of timing. They moved with purpose but also with flexibility, able to change plans in an instant without hesitation. The canyon was narrow, walls rising steeply on either side, rocks unstable beneath their feet. The humans took the lead, climbing carefully, signaling silently with gestures that Liara quickly realized carried as much meaning as spoken words. When a loose rock shifted dangerously, one of the humans barely touched it to redirect its path, preventing a cascade that could have trapped the team. It was a small action, but it demonstrated precision, foresight, and adaptability, traits Illyrians prided themselves on, yet often lacked under pressure. Liara tried to suppress her growing admiration. She reminded herself that one or two clever maneuvers did not prove that humans were exceptional. Yet she found herself watching every action with attention she had never given to other species. Captain James moved steadily, his eyes scanning for ambushes, his mind clearly considering multiple factors at once. When he spoke, his words were concise, instructive, and confident. He had the rare ability to inspire trust simply through presence and clarity. Hours into the journey, they came across the remnants of a previous encounter, scorched rocks, broken weapons, and signs of struggle. Liara noted the precision of the mercenary attacks. They were organized and lethal, but they had underestimated the humans. James knelt, examining the scene, and explained his observations to his team. His reasoning was methodical yet intuitive, connecting patterns and predicting the mercenaries' next move. Liara realized that he was using more than logic. He was reading the situation, the enemy, and even the terrain itself with an instinctive skill she had never seen before. As they continued, a sudden movement caught her eye. A group of mercenaries had set up an ambush farther ahead, hidden in narrow crevices and behind jagged rocks. The humans reacted instantly. Without hesitation, they adjusted their formation, using the canyon walls as cover, moving silently and efficiently. James signaled with a small hand gesture, and two humans climbed higher, gaining vantage points to flank the enemy. Liara felt a thrill of surprise. The speed of their response, the precision of their coordination, was unlike anything she had witnessed among Illyrians. The ambush erupted. Mercenaries fired from concealed positions, and the humans returned fire with calm accuracy. Liara took cover, unsure of what role she should play, but watched as James moved forward, leading a small team to intercept the enemy. He used every advantage, the uneven terrain, shadows, and even the sound of the canyon itself, to mislead the attackers. One human ran across a narrow ledge, drawing fire and then ducking behind a rock, luring mercenaries into a trap carefully orchestrated by James. Liara was stunned. This was more than combat skill. It was strategy, intuition, leadership, and courage combined. The humans were not relying on superior weapons or Illyrian technology. They were using their minds, their instincts, and their willingness to take calculated risks. The mercenaries, for all their experience and strength, were confused, thrown off by the humans' unpredictability. During the skirmish, Liara saw James perform an action that stayed with her. A mercenary aimed directly at a human she had begun to think of as reckless, and James moved in a blur to intercept, pushing the human out of the line of fire. It was a simple act of protection, yet it carried precision and timing that required absolute confidence in both himself and his team. Liara realized she had underestimated the humans' ability to read not only the environment, but each other's movements. Trust and teamwork were embedded in their actions in a way she had never seen among Illyrians. By the time the last mercenary fell back, the humans had not only survived, but gained the upper hand. They secured the area, attended to minor injuries, and reorganized their formation for the next phase. Liara felt a strange mix of relief and admiration. She had come to observe, to critique, and perhaps even to mock. Instead, she found herself inspired by a species she had thought weak, clumsy, and insignificant. As they rested for a brief moment, James approached Liara. "You're quiet today," he said. His tone was casual, almost teasing, but Liara felt the weight of observation in it. He had noticed her the way he noticed small details during battle. "What do you think so far?" "Your methods, your instincts, they are unusual." He trusted himself, and through that, he inspired others to trust him as well. She realized this trust extended beyond humans. It included her, an Illyrian, despite her skepticism. The team continued deeper into the canyon, moving with careful precision. Liara observed how humans communicated. Words were important, but gestures, glances, and timing carried as much meaning. They anticipated each other's actions without verbal instruction, a form of silent coordination that seemed almost instinctive. It reminded her of the stories of human warriors she had laughed at as a child, yet now she could see the truth in them. Humans had abilities Illyrians could not quantify or replicate. The humans led the Illyrians to a vantage point overlooking a large canyon intersection. From there, they could see signs of the mercenaries' base, makeshift shelters, weapons caches, and the movement of guards. James crouched, studying the scene, and then outlined a plan to his team. It was simple, yet flexible, allowing for improvisation as the situation evolved. Liara noted how every human understood their role, but also how they were prepared to change it instantly if needed. Night began to fall, and the canyon grew colder. The team set up a temporary camp. Liara watched humans perform tasks quickly and efficiently, preparing weapons, maintaining communication devices, and setting up rudimentary defenses. Their actions were methodical but not rigid, a balance between discipline and adaptability. She realized that human strength lay not in brute force or technology alone, but in their ability to think, to adapt, and to inspire action in others. Around the campfire, the humans shared stories. Liara listened, fascinated by their humor, resilience, and perspective. They laughed at mistakes, praised clever moves, and supported each other with words and gestures. This bonding, she noted, was part of their strength. It created unity, coordination, and trust that extended even to her, an outsider. As she lay down to rest that night, Liara reflected on everything she had seen. Humans were nothing like she expected. They were not merely survivors, they were innovators, thinkers, and leaders in their own right. She realized that the myths she had dismissed were not exaggerations. They were warnings, lessons, and truths passed down because humans truly were capable of feats that seemed impossible to others. Her skepticism had begun to fade, replaced by curiosity and a quiet respect. She did not yet fully understand how humans could combine instinct, strategy, and courage in such a seamless way, but she was determined to learn. The frontier world was dangerous, and humans had already shown that they could not only survive but thrive in circumstances that would have defeated most others. Liara closed her eyes, feeling a growing sense of anticipation. The real test was still ahead. The mercenaries were not finished, and the humans would have to face challenges far greater than anything she had observed so far. But for the first time, Liara felt a flicker of hope, not just for the humans, but for what she herself might learn from them. In that quiet moment beneath the alien sky, she admitted something to herself she would never say aloud. The myths were true. Humans were extraordinary, and she had only just begun to witness their power. The morning air in the canyon was sharp and cold. Liara woke to the sound of human voices, soft but purposeful, moving through the camp with energy that seemed impossible so early in the day. The humans were already preparing for the next stage of their mission, to investigate the mercenaries' base deeper within the canyon system. Liara rubbed her eyes and followed quietly, curious to see how humans would handle the challenge ahead. Captain James Arlen was already organizing his team. He moved among them with quiet authority, checking equipment, reviewing maps, and giving instructions in short, precise sentences. Despite the danger ahead, there was no panic, no hesitation. Liara noticed again that quality she could not define. Humans seemed calm in ways that made others feel steady, too. Even when she watched their movements, alert for the slightest mistake, she found herself doubting her own assumptions. These humans were disciplined, clever, and remarkably intuitive. The team moved through narrow paths and rocky ridges, following trails left by the mercenaries. Liara observed how humans adapted constantly to the changing terrain. A loose rock here, a steep incline there, a sudden drop. Humans moved with a mixture of caution and instinctive decision-making that seemed almost impossible to predict. One human tripped, but instead of panicking, another grabbed his arm and pulled him up without slowing the rest of the team. Coordination like this was not taught in manuals. It was learned, honed through experience. As they approached the mercenary base, James signaled for the team to halt. Liara crouched behind a rock and observed. The base was larger than she expected, a crude but functional compound built into a canyon wall. Mercenaries moved along patrol paths, unaware of the approaching humans. James began outlining a plan quietly, drawing in the dust with his finger to illustrate positions and movement. Liara listened closely, noting that his plan was simple yet flexible, allowing for improvisation. Humans did not rely solely on numbers or technology, they relied on understanding, anticipation, and courage. The first step was reconnaissance. James chose a small team, including Liara, to move closer to gather information. As they crept along the canyon floor, Liara realized how humans blended observation, patience, and calculated risk. A misstep could alert the mercenaries, yet the humans moved carefully, using shadows, natural cover, and instinct to guide their path. Liara found herself holding her breath as James pointed out a vulnerable spot in the patrol pattern. One human moved forward, barely making a sound, and returned with the information they needed. When the team regrouped, James outlined the next phase, an ambush that would cut off the mercenaries' escape routes. Liara watched as he explained positions and responsibilities, noting how humans adapted to one another with almost invisible signals. A tilt of the head, a hand gesture, a glance, humans communicated without words, anticipating each other's moves. It was coordination that seemed almost instinctive, and Liara felt a mixture of awe and disbelief. The ambush began. Humans moved silently into their positions, using the terrain to their advantage. Mercenaries continued their patrols, unaware of the trap forming around them. Liara followed at a distance, ready to assist if needed. Then, as James gave the signal, the attack commenced. Humans surged forward with speed and precision. Weapons fired in controlled bursts, forcing the mercenaries to retreat into the canyon's narrow paths where the humans had set traps. Liara watched James in action. He was calm, efficient, and constantly aware of the changing situation. When a mercenary aimed at a human scout, James moved instantly, intercepting the line of fire and shielding his teammate. His timing was perfect, almost impossible. The humans worked as one, covering each other's weaknesses, exploiting every opening. Liara realized that their strength lay not in brute force but in adaptability, trust, and creativity. The mercenaries began to panic. They had underestimated the humans' strategy and coordination. Liara felt a thrill of excitement as she watched humans lead the attackers into carefully planned positions, using terrain, shadows, and noise to confuse and isolate them. One human ran across a narrow ledge, drawing enemy attention, then ducked behind cover as others flanked the mercenaries from above. Every movement was calculated, yet flexible enough to adjust to unexpected challenges. During the battle, Liara witnessed a moment that changed her understanding completely. A mercenary raised a weapon toward a small group of humans trapped in a narrow canyon. James darted forward without hesitation, intercepting the mercenary and pushing the humans out of harm's way. It was a dangerous move, yet executed flawlessly. Liara realized that humans did not rely solely on instinct or planning. They combined both, reacting to danger with courage and intelligence simultaneously. The fight continued for hours, with humans slowly gaining the upper hand. Mercenaries were forced to retreat to defensible positions, but the humans pressed forward, exploiting every weakness. Liara noticed how the humans adapted constantly. When a planned route became blocked, they adjusted immediately, finding new paths and maintaining pressure. She compared this to Illyrians, who often became rigid when faced with unexpected challenges. Humans, she realized, thrived on unpredictability. Liara herself became involved when a mercenary tried to flank the team from a hidden ledge. She had been trained for combat, but her movements were cautious and deliberate, lacking the instinctive fluidity of the humans. James noticed her hesitation and shouted instructions, guiding her into position. She followed, marveling at how his words, gestures, and timing allowed her to act confidently. It was teamwork, yes, but also inspiration. He made her believe she could act beyond her own limits. By the time the sun began to set, the battle had shifted decisively in the humans' favor. The mercenaries, disoriented and demoralized, retreated deeper into the canyon. The humans secured the area, treated minor injuries, and regrouped. Liara felt exhaustion, but also exhilaration. She had watched humans not just survive, but dominate a battle through intelligence, adaptability, and courage. That night, the humans set up camp in a small, sheltered area. Liara watched them carefully. They moved with purpose, maintaining equipment, preparing for the next stage, and still finding moments to share stories and laugh. Despite the danger and fatigue, there was energy and camaraderie that inspired those around them. Liara felt a pang of envy. Her own people often lost morale in prolonged conflicts, relying too heavily on planning and prediction rather than spirit and intuition. James approached her as she checked supplies. "You did well today," he said quietly. Liara blinked in surprise. She had been observing, following his instructions and learning, but he recognized her contribution. I tried to keep up," she admitted. He smiled faintly. "You did more than that. You adapted, learned quickly, and didn't hesitate when it mattered. That's what humans do. We survive because we act, not just think." Liara considered his words. It was simple, yet profound. Humans did not rely solely on analysis or perfection. They relied on courage, trust, and adaptability. She realized that these qualities were what made them exceptional, what the myths had always hinted at. The next day, the humans prepared to move deeper into the canyon to flush out the remaining mercenaries. Liara felt a strange sense of anticipation. She had seen humans in action, witnessed their ingenuity and bravery firsthand, and begun to respect them deeply. Yet she knew the challenges ahead would be greater, testing not only skill and strategy, but endurance, resilience, and willpower. As they moved out, Liara noticed small details she had missed before: the way humans observed the terrain, the way they anticipated danger, and the subtle ways they communicated. Even under stress, they maintained clarity of thought and coordination. She realized that humans had an energy she had never experienced before, a combination of instinct, intelligence, and determination that allowed them to act in ways no other species could predict. Hours passed as they advanced cautiously. The canyon grew narrower, more treacherous, and the threat of ambush increased. Liara's heart raced, not from fear, but from admiration. Humans faced danger with courage, creativity, and a willingness to adapt that was astonishing. She realized that their strength lay not in individual skill alone, but in their ability to work together, inspire one another, and act decisively even in the face of uncertainty. Finally, they reached a large cavern where the mercenaries had gathered. James signaled for silence and outlined the plan for the final engagement. Liara watched in awe as humans positioned themselves with precision, ready to strike with minimal exposure. They moved as one, each person understanding their role while remaining flexible to respond to changes. It was coordination, strategy, and courage combined in a way she had never seen before. When the battle began, humans struck with timing, intelligence, and creativity. Liara fought alongside them, guided by James' calm instructions and inspired by his courage. She realized that humans did not just rely on weapons. They relied on perception, ingenuity, and an unbreakable will. Even when faced with overwhelming odds, they adapted, improvised, and prevailed. As the sun set behind the canyon walls, the mercenaries were finally defeated. The humans had achieved victory, not through brute force or superior technology alone, but through courage, intelligence, and coordination. Liara stood among them, exhausted but exhilarated, fully understanding now why myths about human warriors existed. They were not stories, they were reality. That night, as she sat by the campfire, Liara reflected on everything she had seen. Humans were extraordinary. Their bravery, creativity, and ability to inspire those around them were beyond what she had imagined. She realized that the frontier world was not just a test for humans, but for herself, to see, learn, and perhaps even grow from witnessing a species capable of greatness in ways she had never understood. Liara finally admitted it to herself, quietly and without hesitation. The myths were true. Humans were exceptional, not because of strength alone, but because of spirit, intelligence, and courage. And she was beginning to see that the galaxy would be a very different place once others recognized it too. The morning dawned quiet and tense. Liara woke to the distant calls of the humans preparing for the day's mission. Yesterday's victory had been significant, but the mercenaries were far from finished. Captain James Arlen had made it clear that their success so far had only been a prelude to a larger challenge. The mercenaries had retreated deeper into the canyon system, and the humans would have to pursue them through unfamiliar terrain, traps, and potential ambushes. Liara rose from her sleeping area, stretching her limbs and observing the humans as they moved about. Their energy seemed inexhaustible. They checked weapons, reviewed plans, and shared quick words of encouragement with one another. Liara was struck again by how effortlessly humans combined efficiency with morale. Every action served a purpose, yet they still found time to support and motivate each other. She felt a growing sense of respect for them. This was not a species driven purely by survival instinct. They were guided by courage, intelligence, and a sense of responsibility for those around them. James called the team together to discuss the approach. They would move through a narrow canyon corridor to reach the mercenary stronghold, using cover, elevation, and stealth to minimize exposure. Liara listened carefully as James outlined contingencies, alternative routes, and methods to coordinate the team silently if the situation became chaotic. His plan was precise, yet flexible, leaving room for improvisation. It was unlike anything Liara had seen among Illyrians, whose strategies often depended on strict rules and calculations rather than instinct and adaptability. As they advanced, Liara observed the humans navigating the canyon. Their movements were deliberate yet fluid, adjusting instantly to changes in the terrain. Loose rocks, sudden drops, and unexpected ledges were handled with ease. Humans helped one another without hesitation, guiding teammates across difficult paths and sharing knowledge quietly through gestures and glances. Liara realized that their strength was not only in physical skill or weaponry, but in their ability to coordinate, adapt, and inspire trust in each other. Suddenly, a sharp sound echoed through the canyon. Liara froze, her Illyrian instincts warning her of danger, but the humans reacted without panic. James signaled a halt and scanned the area, noticing a cluster of mercenaries lying in wait. Liara watched as the humans adjusted their formation instantly, using the terrain to their advantage. They moved silently, placing themselves in positions that would maximize the element of surprise while minimizing risk. The ambush erupted. Mercenaries opened fire from concealed positions, but the humans were ready. They countered with precise movements, taking cover behind rocks, using shadows, and firing only when targets were clear. James led from the front, moving swiftly to protect his teammates, intercepting attacks, and redirecting the enemy's focus. Liara marveled at the coordination. Every human acted as if they were part of a single organism, anticipating each other's moves without verbal communication. In the midst of the chaos, Liara witnessed an act of courage that left her awestruck. A young human soldier was cornered by two mercenaries, weapons raised. Without hesitation, James moved forward, deflecting the attacker's attention and creating an opening for the soldier to escape. The timing was perfect, the risk enormous, yet it worked flawlessly. Liara realized that humans combined instinct, intelligence, and bravery in ways that made them unpredictable and formidable. The battle continued for hours. The mercenaries, though strong and well-armed, could not match the humans' adaptability. Liara noticed how humans improvised constantly, using the environment, creating diversions, and exploiting enemy weaknesses. When a planned path became blocked by fallen rocks, they adjusted instantly, finding new routes and maintaining the pressure. It was clear that humans thrived in situations where other species might falter, turning chaos into opportunity. Liara herself became actively involved when a group of mercenaries tried to flank the humans from a hidden ridge. She had training in combat, but her movements were cautious compared to the humans. James noticed her hesitation and shouted instructions, guiding her into position. Following his lead, she felt a surge of confidence and precision she had never experienced before. The humans' courage and example inspired her to act beyond her own limitations. As the sun climbed higher, the humans gained ground, pushing the mercenaries back into a central chamber within the canyon. The battle had become a test of endurance as much as skill. Humans coordinated constantly, using quick strategies to minimize exposure while maximizing impact. Liara noted that even when they were tired, they remained alert, motivated, and adaptable. Their resilience seemed limitless. During a brief pause, James gathered the team to reassess their plan. "We've got them contained, but the real challenge is inside the canyon chamber," he said. "We'll need to be precise, coordinated, and ready for anything. Watch each other's backs and trust your instincts. Stay focused, stay together." Liara listened carefully. His words were simple, but they conveyed strategy, encouragement, and leadership all at once. Humans did not just follow orders. They internalized guidance and acted with initiative, making each individual capable of independent, intelligent action while still operating as a team. They moved forward into the chamber. The space was wide but filled with obstacles, crates, machinery, and natural rock formations that provided cover for the mercenaries. Liara saw the humans split into smaller units, each taking a path that maximized advantage and minimized exposure. James led the central group, signaling silently to coordinate movements. The humans moved like shadows, striking quickly, retreating when necessary, and adapting instantly to enemy responses. Liara was amazed. She had trained for combat, studied strategy, and faced danger before, yet she had never encountered beings who could combine instinct, creativity, and courage so seamlessly. Humans were unpredictable, yet precise, bold, yet careful. They seemed to see the battlefield as a living puzzle, solving it in real time with a mixture of skill, intuition, and willpower. The mercenaries, despite their numbers and strength, were overwhelmed. They had anticipated conventional strategies, but humans did not fight conventionally. Every move was calculated yet flexible, exploiting enemy weaknesses while adapting to unexpected challenges. Liara could see the fear and confusion in their eyes as humans closed in from multiple directions, coordinated and relentless. In one critical moment, a mercenary attempted to set off an explosive device to collapse part of the canyon and trap the humans. James reacted instantly, signaling two teammates to disable the device while he drew the mercenary away. The plan required perfect timing, trust, and bravery. Liara watched in awe as it worked flawlessly. Humans were not just warriors. They were thinkers, problem solvers, and leaders, even in life-threatening situations. As the battle reached its climax, the humans cornered the remaining mercenaries. Liara observed how they maintained order, controlled their movements, and ensured minimal casualties while securing victory. It was not brute force alone that had won the day. It was strategy, adaptability, courage, and the ability to inspire others to act beyond their limits. By the evening, the humans had fully secured the canyon chamber. Mercenaries were captured or retreated, and the area was safe. Liara felt exhaustion, but also exhilaration. She had witnessed human ingenuity, bravery, and teamwork at their highest level. She had seen myths come to life, not exaggerated stories, but reality. Humans were not just capable fighters, they were extraordinary in ways that no legend could fully capture. As they set up camp for the night, Liara observed the humans again. They moved efficiently, checking equipment, preparing for any contingencies, and still sharing stories, laughter, and quiet words of encouragement. Even in the aftermath of battle, they maintained morale and unity. Liara reflected on how their strength lay not in individual power, but in their collective spirit, intelligence, and resilience. James approached her as she examined the terrain. "You did well today," he said. Liara looked up, surprised. I did what I could," she replied, unsure if it was enough. James smiled faintly. "You adapted, you trusted yourself and your team, that's what matters. That's how we survive out here." Liara nodded slowly, understanding for the first time that survival was not just about skill or technology. It was about courage, adaptability, and trust. Humans had these qualities in abundance. As night fell, Liara sat by the fire, reflecting on the day. She had seen humans overcome impossible odds, outthink and outmaneuver enemies, and inspire each other to act beyond what seemed possible. She realized that their strength was not just physical, it was mental, emotional, and spiritual. Humans could endure, adapt, and lead in ways that few other species could match. For the first time, Liara felt a deep respect, bordering on admiration for humans. The myths she had dismissed as exaggerations were not false. They were glimpses of a truth that she was only beginning to understand. Humans were extraordinary, not just because of their courage, but because of their ingenuity, resilience, and ability to inspire greatness in others. She knew the frontier world still held challenges. The mercenaries were not gone, and greater dangers awaited. But Liara also knew that with humans at her side, there was hope. She had witnessed their strength firsthand and understood that they were capable of facing the impossible and prevailing. That night, under the alien sky, Liara allowed herself to admit the truth. Humans were more than legends. They were exceptional warriors, thinkers, and leaders. And she was beginning to realize that their presence in the galaxy would change everything, not through domination, but through courage, ingenuity, and the example they set for others. The day broke quietly, the canyon bathed in pale light. Liara awoke with a sense of purpose she had never felt before. The humans had proven themselves time and again, yet the real test was still ahead. The remaining mercenaries had retreated to a fortified area deeper within the canyon, and James knew that to secure peace, they would need to act decisively. Liara felt a mixture of anticipation and respect. She was no longer just observing humans. She was part of the effort to see justice done and lives protected. The team assembled quickly, their movements precise and confident. Humans checked weapons, reviewed positions, and communicated with a mixture of words, gestures, and instinctive understanding. Liara noticed how every member of the group seemed aware of not only their own role, but the roles of everyone around them. There was no hesitation, no doubt, only a collective focus that radiated strength. James addressed them calmly. This is the final push. Stick to your plan, trust each other, and adapt as needed. Stay sharp, stay together, and we succeed. His words carried authority, reassurance, and a subtle inspiration that was impossible to ignore. They moved through the canyon with caution. The terrain was more treacherous than ever. Steep cliffs, narrow ledges, and jagged rocks created natural obstacles while hiding potential threats. Liara felt a thrill of apprehension as they advanced. Humans navigated with skill and awareness, helping each other across difficult stretches and adjusting instantly to unexpected hazards. She was struck again by the contrast with Illyrians, who often relied on rules and analysis rather than instinct and adaptability. Humans combined both, and the result was extraordinary. Suddenly, a shout rang out. A group of mercenaries had set up a hidden position along a ridge, ready to ambush. Liara instinctively dropped behind a rock, her heart pounding, but the humans reacted instantly. James assessed the situation in a split second, signaling to his team without a word. Humans shifted positions, using the canyon walls for cover, flanking the enemy from angles that seemed impossible. Liara followed their movements, amazed at how seamlessly they coordinated under pressure. The ambush erupted, but the humans were ready. They moved with precision, covering each other, firing only when targets were clear. James led from the front, deflecting attacks, protecting teammates, and constantly adapting to the enemy's movements. Liara watched a human soldier dive to protect a companion from a blast, then rise immediately to counterattack. It was courage, intelligence, and instinct acting together in a way she had never seen. Hours passed, each moment more intense than the last. The mercenaries were stronger and better armed than expected, but humans thrived on unpredictability. They improvised, used the terrain creatively, and turned potential disadvantages into opportunities. Liara found herself inspired by their fearlessness and ingenuity. Even when a planned path was blocked, they adjusted instantly, maintaining momentum and strategy. In the midst of the battle, Liara experienced a moment that solidified her respect. A mercenary raised a weapon toward a young human soldier who had slipped on a rocky ledge. James moved without hesitation, intercepting the threat and pushing the soldier to safety. The timing was perfect, the risk enormous, yet it worked flawlessly. Liara realized that humans did not just act. They calculated instinctively, balancing risk and opportunity with precision. The battle reached its climax as the humans cornered the mercenaries in a narrow canyon chamber. Liara watched as they worked together to secure the area, using tactics that combined stealth, diversion, and coordination. Every movement was purposeful yet flexible, allowing them to respond instantly to unexpected challenges. The humans had learned to trust not only themselves but each other, creating a force that was stronger than the sum of its parts. James signaled a final advance. Humans moved forward, covering each other, maintaining communication through gestures and subtle signals. The mercenaries tried to resist, but the humans' coordination, adaptability, and determination were overwhelming. Liara joined in, following James' guidance, and felt herself acting with confidence she had never known. Humans inspired others to rise beyond their limits, and she was experiencing it firsthand. When the last mercenary fell back or surrendered, the canyon fell silent. Humans had achieved victory, not through brute force alone, but through courage, strategy, and unity. Liara surveyed the scene, exhausted but exhilarated. She had witnessed human ingenuity and bravery at its highest. They had turned a desperate situation into a decisive triumph. The team regrouped. Humans attended to minor injuries, checked equipment, and secured the area. Liara watched as they interacted, not just as soldiers, but as a community. They encouraged one another, shared quiet words of reassurance, and laughed softly to relieve tension. Liara realized that part of their strength lay in morale, in the bonds that allowed them to act cohesively under extreme pressure. James approached her once more. "You've seen what humans can do," he said quietly. Liara nodded. "I understand now. You are not just strong or clever or fast. You are all of these together in ways that no other species can match." She realized that humans' ability to inspire, coordinate, and act decisively was what made them legendary. Their strength was not simply physical or technological. It was something deeper, something that could not be replicated by rules or calculations alone. As the sun set behind the canyon walls, the team set up camp for the night. Liara sat quietly, reflecting on everything she had seen. Humans had faced impossible odds, adapted to challenges no one could predict, and inspired courage in those around them. They had proven that myths were not exaggerations, they were glimpses of reality. Humans were extraordinary, not only for their skill or bravery, but for their spirit, ingenuity, and resilience. Liara realized that her journey had changed her. She had arrived as a skeptic, ready to dismiss the legends of human warriors. Instead, she had witnessed them firsthand, seen their courage, their intelligence, and their ability to inspire action beyond what seemed possible. She had learned that strength was not measured only by size or technology, but by creativity, perseverance, and trust. The following days were quieter but no less important. Humans helped the surviving mercenaries, ensuring that justice was maintained and peace restored. They repaired damage, cared for injured civilians, and coordinated with Illyrians to secure the canyon system. Liara observed how humans combined efficiency with empathy, strength with care. Their example taught her that power could be used wisely and responsibly, a lesson she would carry with her forever. When the mission was complete, the humans and Illyrians returned to the frontier base. Liara walked alongside James, her mind full of reflection. "I came here to observe," she said softly, "but I have learned more than I expected. Humans are exceptional. Not because of myths or exaggeration, but because of who you are and how you act." She understood now that humans' power lay not only in their actions but in their example. They inspired others to rise beyond limits, to face challenges with intelligence and courage, and to trust in each other. It was a lesson she would never forget. When she reported back to her superiors, Liara did not speak of weakness or mistakes. She spoke of humans' courage, ingenuity, and leadership. She described their ability to inspire and adapt, to act decisively under pressure, and to turn the impossible into victory. She emphasized that humans were not just capable, they were extraordinary. The stories she had once laughed at were true, and the galaxy would do well to pay attention. That evening, Liara returned to her quarters. She sat quietly, gazing at the stars beyond the frontier world. For the first time, she felt hope, not just for the humans, but for the possibilities that the galaxy held. Humans had shown her that courage, creativity, and trust could overcome any challenge. They had demonstrated that legends were often based on truth, and that myths existed to remind others of what was possible. She thought of James and his team, of their skill, bravery, and relentless determination. They had faced impossible odds, adapted to every challenge, and prevailed without cruelty or arrogance. They had proven that strength could be measured not only in physical power, but in spirit, ingenuity, and the ability to inspire others. Liara knew that her perspective had changed forever. Humans were more than stories. They were a force that could shape the galaxy, not through domination, but through courage, intelligence, and example. She felt a deep sense of gratitude for having witnessed their abilities firsthand and a quiet determination to carry their lessons forward. As she looked at the horizon, the stars sparkling above the canyon, Liara allowed herself a private acknowledgement. The myths of human warriors were real, and she had been lucky enough to see them in action. Humans had proven that even the smallest, seemingly fragile beings could rise to greatness through courage, adaptability, and unwavering spirit. The frontier world was now safer, the mercenaries defeated and the humans victorious. But more importantly, Liara had witnessed something extraordinary, a species whose legends were not just stories, but living proof of resilience, intelligence, and bravery. She knew that their example would inspire generations of Illyrians, and perhaps many others, to remember that strength came in many forms and that true heroes could rise where others might falter. Liara finally allowed herself a smile, a rare and genuine expression. She had arrived skeptical, doubtful, and dismissive. She would leave changed, enlightened, and inspired. Humans were not only warriors, they were symbols of courage, ingenuity, and hope, and she knew the galaxy would never be the same after seeing them fight. She laughed at the myths of human warriors until she saw one fight HFY Sci-fi story.